Righto. Well, the first talk was by Peter Johnstone in Townsville. Peter's not very well at the moment, as I said earlier, and he's sent me some info this afternoon, which I sort of converted into a couple of slides. So I'll talk about this logo here shortly. So he's setting up.
Looking logo.
Yeah.
Looking logo.
Yeah, it is. It's not too bad for a little discussion group. So he's come up with this name for the group, which is a little bit long.
How do you pronounce that?
We tried to get him to put an O between the D and the G.
That's right.
TRAWDG. But it was just too long already. So it's the Townsville Region Aerial War Discussion Group. Okay. So Peter's one of our members, as you might know. He lives in Townsville, and he's had a deep fascination for activities of various air forces in the Townsville region during World War II. And his interest in this sort of started many years ago when he found a Brisbane tank. So that's one of the field drop tanks that were made for
the
B-47 Thunderbolts by the Ford factory at Eagle Farm for the 81st Air Depot Group. So he found one of them on the banks of the Black River outside of Townsville on the way heading north. He's also been an avid scale modeler for over 60 years and still very much involved in that. And he was having coffee with Charters Towers historian Bill Henderson, OAM, and he was struck by the wealth of World War II stories that Bill shared with him. So he decided, or the two of them decided, to start an informal gathering and form a discussion group. He didn't want an official group, an incorporated group or anything like that. Christian Smith, I think that's his surname, who runs the Donington Air Park at Woodstock, offered to host the group. So it's a little bit of a way outside of Townsville on the way to Charters Towers. And he's been actively promoting the group on his Facebook account as well. There's a local history buff called Brad McCartan, or Spooks McCartan, if you see him on Facebook. He designed the logo that you see, which I've repeated up the top of the screen there. So they're proposing to have their first group meeting on the 24th of March. I'm not sure what day of the week that is, at 9:30 a.m. at Donington Air Park at Woodstock. Bill Henderson from Charters Towers, Charlie's Trousers, as we used to call it, in Townsville, hopes to delve deeper into stories such as the intriguing tale of the highball mosquito that was under armed guard at Macrossan. I haven't heard about that one. And I haven't heard about the next one either. Proposed expansion of Fanning River Airfield to accept B-29 Super Fortresses, which obviously didn't go ahead. And Peter himself has heard lots of tales over the years, and he's hoping to explore the many oral histories that he's heard, searching for verification as to whether they're true or not. So that's a little bit of background on the group that Peter's going to set up. I've thrown in these extra few slides. Townsville was a pretty busy place during World War II. There were a lot of airfields constructed. So you've got Garbutt Airfield just here, a bit hard to see it there. Sorry, just there. And then over to the left here was Mount St John Airfield, where the old zoo used to be. It's now the Bowley Industrial Estate, which my wife's cousin owns. Bowley Airfield was a big airfield. Stockroot Airfield, a short taxi along a local roadway to Garbutt. And that airfield is now Dalrymple Road. And that's where the big American Air Depot was built. Aikenvale Weir Airfield near the river, out there near the Weir State School. Ross River Airfield, which was the commercial airfield prior to Garbutt becoming the commercial airfield. I can remember riding my push bike out there as a kid, watching all the tiger moths. So that was used by Mustangs, etc., during the war. Upper Ross Airfield at Kelso was sort of built, never used. That's where the African-American Negroes had their big uprising. Over here, there were 3 or 4 runways for Anthill Plains Airfield. Garoo Airfield was out this way. And Woodstock had 3 runways, one on the highway to Charters Towers, one on the road to Garoo, and this other one here. Donington Air Park is right in the middle of those World War II runways. It was not a World War II airfield. So Townsville was a pretty busy place. This is just zooming in a bit. There's Garbutt Airfield, as you know it today. There's Mount St John, where it used to be. Aiken Vale, just near the river here. Ross River, out near the meat works, used to be there. And on the next slide is Woodstock. So here's your Donington Air Park, where they plan to have their first meeting on the 24th of March. So it's pretty fitting that it's in the middle of 3 World War II airfields. By the way, down further south of there was Reed River Airfield as well, not too far south of Woodstock Airfield. So that's the info on the TRAWD.
TRAWDG.
So
I
any,
did a touch and go at Donington Air Park 20 or 30 years ago, and I think I fly my Cessna 182, which was my Cessna was working out of Townsville, and one day I was on the ground there and I borrowed my aeroplane to go for a local flight and do touch and go at Donington Air Park on that.
very good. So any questions on that? That either I or
There's certainly a huge amount of opportunity there. There's so much went on in the area. These guys every opportunity to dig up some really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the 22nd Bomb Group arrived in Townsville on the 28th of March, and they had 4 squadrons. So it's an American group. So the headquarters and headquarters squadron went to that Stockroot airstrip, which is Dalrymple Road today. The 2nd Bomb Squadron and the 18th Reconnaissance Squadron went to Reed River, the one that was south of Woodstock. And the 33rd Bomb Squadron went to Anthill Plains. So they arrived 28th March.
You didn't mention they had B-26s.
Yeah, they've got B-26s, sorry. So they're a very fast bomber and light bomber. And as soon as they arrived, they started bombing Rabaul. So the method was they would fly to Garbutt, bomb up, fuel up, fly to Port Moresby, fuel up, stay the night. So they'd arrive just before dark to avoid getting bombed. And then early the next morning, very early the next morning, do their bombing raid on Rabaul, back to Moresby, fuel up, fly straight back to Townsville, all shot. Some of them shot up fairly badly. Prior to them getting there, that was in March, the 435th Bomb Squadron, which had B-17s, they arrived in Townsville on the 18th of February, 42, and they started bombing Rabaul the very next day. So they were based at Garbutt. So that's Townsville and TRAWDG. So I'll move on to my little talk.
Bit late in the round out, Hoskins.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, nice photo. It's obviously not in Australia. It's on one of the
Quite
islands.
a heavy landing there.
On one of the Coral Islands, I'd say. By the looks of the white tarmac and the coconut trees. So I thought it was a good photo to use. So as you know, I've got a large website called Australia at War. And I just thought I'd share with you how many aircraft crashes I've got covered on my website at the moment. So I've only got 2,314 that happened in Australia during World War II. And I've got a long way to go. I reckon I'll get well over 5,000 if I live long enough. So you can see that Queensland and Northern Territory are the main two. Surprisingly, Victoria is pretty high. They're all training flights. New South Wales pretty high as well. Okay, I'll just give you a few statistics that I've sort of grabbed over the years. So during the World War II, the United States Army Air Forces lost more than 4,400 aircraft in combat against the Japanese. So that's in the Pacific. During the same period, the Air Force, the US Army Air Forces, lost more than 7,100 aircraft on mainland USA, with more than 15,530 deaths. Okay, so these are all non-combat losses. And that's pretty much what happened down this way as well. Many more lost in non-combat than were lost in combat. What were the causes? Poor navigation, poor weather.
Just that statement you made is it fits with every country where there were they lost. You know, they had more people, more accidents, and people killed in training
operations,
combat, basically.
Yep, that's true. So poor navigation, bad weather, ran out of fuel. The Americans were pretty good at those first three when they arrived. They got so bad that they ended up putting on RAAF navigators early in the piece. Poor judgment. There were quite a few crashes, particularly Americans, buzzing their girlfriend's house, say in Townsville, and hitting a church steeple or hitting a 33 kV transmission line and crashing. There were collisions. There was malfunction, obviously, showing off, which I've just covered earlier. There were a couple of cases of sabotage and, of course, enemy action. So there were many, many causes. The Americans, when they first arrived, were using shell road maps to find their way around Australia. I just read a diary the other day, and the guy said, Captain Ralph Allen, I think his name was, with the 22nd Bomb Group, he said the best maps we had were the shell road maps when he arrived. So this, so these are some graphs that I found on the National Archives website. So it shows Allied aircraft lost by enemy action in the Pacific War. Now, I'm not sure what that means. Does that just mean the Southwest Pacific area, or does that mean all the other theatres of war in the Pacific as well? I don't really know. The RAAF were only in the Southwest Pacific area as far as I know. So maybe it's just the Southwest Pacific area. So this is a cumulative number here. So it starts in December 41, there's 1942 there, there's 1943, 1944, through to August 45. So by the end here, the RAAF had lost 527 aircraft to enemy action, probably in the Southwest Pacific area, which was General MacArthur's theatre of war. For the US Army Air Forces, the number was 778. And there's a bit of a break up here, you know, fighter aircraft with these ones here, this, I don't know what colour you call that, purple with medium bombers, etc., etc.
Mauve.
Mauve, yeah, whatever. My wife would say I'm colourblind. Righto, so here's another slide. So this is Allied aircraft lost by normal action. So this is non-combat. So we'll just go back, remember, 527, non-combat 1,666 RAAF aircraft lost, and 1,702 American aircraft, whereas it was 778 due to enemy action. Okay, so quite a big difference. So total of those two was 3,368. This is another view of RAAF monthly operational aircraft losses. Normal below the line, as Roger said, and enemy above the line. So you can see the numbers below the line are significantly higher. So quite some interesting statistics.
Like when the war ended.
Yeah. I just thought I'd sort of show you the various theatres of war. So this was the Southwest Pacific, which MacArthur was in charge of. And then there were the other areas. The Pacific area was split into three: North Pacific, Central, and South Pacific. And there was this other little area over here, plus the Indian Ocean. And why I've shown you that is that there are all sorts of statistics around, and I'm not going to go into any detail with this. If anyone wants it, I can shoot it to you. Somebody has done a lot of work and put together statistics for, there's all fighters, you know, P-38s, P-39s, P-40s, total received, numbers lost in accident due to aerial combat, due to enemy action, anti-aircraft enemy action, missing after enemy action, lost on the ground due to strafing, lost on the ground due to bombing, etc. And that goes through attack bombers, medium bombers, heavy bombers, blah, blah, blah. So if anyone wants a copy of that, you're welcome to it. So that's Far East Air Forces, which was what the Air Forces were called towards the end of the war. That's losses in the Southwest Pacific area.
Question?
Yes.
I note the date. What's the significance of the date?
Which date, sorry?
20th of August 44. Why the cutoff there?
I have no idea.
I appreciate you have no idea, but highlighting the fact that
I should have read 45.
The end of the war was the 15th. That's 5 days after. Oh, 44 it is.
44.
Yeah, 44. I don't know why it finished in 44. I have no idea.
Surely that should have been 20 August 45.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I'll check.
5 days after the end of the war.
Yeah, it could be. I might have made a mistake. Yep. I'll have a look.
Yeah. FEAF was then obviously it wasn't everything because the B-29s weren't part of FEAF.
No. Well, that was outside of the Southwest Pacific area. Yeah. Are they on this list, are they? B-29s.
Well, Far East Air Force's aircraft losses takes, or it does say in SWPA. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Southwest Pacific.
Early in the war, the RAAF, the Advisory War Council were getting a bit worried about the number of crashes, number of non-combat crashes, and they asked for an explanation from the Air Force, and this is what they received from the Air Force. So early in 42, February through to July, and they gave these numbers here. So error of judgment in February, there were 4, poor techniques, 7, what's that say? Disobedience of order, 3, naughty boys, carelessness or negligence, 2, mechanical defect, undetermined and doubtful, etc. So clearly the War Council were a bit worried about the high rate of losses due to non-combat action. I think this is my last slide. This is another slide. Won't be accurate because this is us saying how many Japanese aircraft we shot down. And for the historians in the group, you will know that those figures are very much over-exaggerated, sometimes by a factor of 2 or 3 to 1. So they are figures, but I wouldn't believe them very much. I believe the earlier ones, but not this particular slide. But what they're saying in October 43, that 1,000 Japanese aircraft were lost in the Southwest Pacific area. That many were damaged, that many were probably destroyed, and the gung-ho AHSAs claimed that many shot down.
But this may also include ground losses, like strafing and things.
Yeah, which possibly, yeah, it probably does.
But you're right, it's highly exaggerated.
Yeah, particularly with shoot downs.
Be interesting to compare that to the production numbers. Surely somebody's got production numbers over the same periods.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody has, but not me. Okay, so that's my little talk. So who's next? We've got Trevor Potter. So Trevor, I'll just find your presentation. Any questions first?
Yeah, something that graph that came up with all the losses with August 44. That would have been right, that date, because I noticed there was no P51s. They didn't come into service until late 44.
Okay.
So there's no P51s there, and the A26s were the trial aircraft that were tested in New Guinea, because there was only a couple of them there.
Yep.
And it wasn't until 45 when the whole 3rd Bomb Group
Yep.
converted A26, and they did have a few losses. So yeah, that date would be right, because there's factors outside that date period that aren't there.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I wonder why they picked that date then. It just seems rather arbitrary then.
Yeah.
It does. Yep. Righto. No other questions? Over to you, Trevor.
Okay, thanks, Peter. I'll just talk to each slide and just ask you to change to the next one. I run out of stuff to say.
Yep.
The America did a goodwill visit to Brisbane in June last year. I was fortunate enough to get a invite on board to a reception. One of the things that surprised me that there was no restrictions on photography. I double-checked that and I got on board to make sure I didn't end up in the clink, but it was right. So I got quite a lot of photographs out of the visit. The USS America is the first of the America class of Navy amphibious assault ships. There's going to be about 11 of them built, cost of about $3.4 billion per unit. There's two in action now. There's the America, there's the Tripoli, and the Bougainville will probably come online this year, I think. The first two ships, the America and the Tripoli, don't have a well deck. That big flat area at the back of the ship, the America written on it, that can be open, and landing craft and air cushion vehicles can go into the vehicle for loading and into the vessel for loading and unloading. The first two will have a big hangar deck and a small hospital, and then from the Bougainville on, we'll have a big hospital and a small hangar deck. So there are space restrictions. You can't have everything.
I assume that's some rockets or something there.
I'm not quite sure.
I think you'll find their RAM.
RAM.
Yeah, either RAM or C AMRAAM, or a containerized short-range air defense system on just about every American ship. They're probably RAMs, rolling airframe missile.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Looks like a gun.
The way the ship's been set up, if the price of oil keeps increasing, it'll get to a stage probably around about 2040 where they could switch over to nuclear power. The surprising part about the whole ship is I found that 70% of it is built in factories away from the dry dock. The dry dock is actually just a big flat concrete area with a grid of rail lines, and the parts are put on dollies and just maneuvered around on this big platform and welded together. There's a shot that just gives you some idea of the layout of the ship. The ship is 257 metres long and 32 metres wide. That's determined by the width of the Panama Canal, so we can fit through. The line, the small dotted, it's actually a dotted red and white line straight down the middle, cuts the flight deck into two halves. The left half becomes an active runway, and the right half becomes storage for aircraft, equipment, and personnel. The lifts on both sides there bring aircraft up from the hangar deck below. The big yellow line there is, I think, mainly used by the jets to do vertical landings, and you can see there's scorch marks on the yellow center line. In fact, the blowtorch effect of the exhaust floats to the deck as they're landing vertically can weaken the deck. It's led to some reinforcements of the deck, special coatings being applied, and in some cases restriction of flights. The ship has 2 marine gas turbines. The threat with these ships now is shore-based missiles. Preferably, they'd like to have the as far offshore as possible, maybe even below the horizon. And that means that they need a fast way getting the Marines to shore, and that's where the Osprey comes in. And it can take the Marines not only to the shore, but it can take them further inland, so it's a bit more flexible than just a landing craft. The Osprey can carry 24 troops seated or 32 floor loaded. The special deck coating and that sort of measures will apply to future ships, of course, to get over the problem. The ship can be set up for amphibious operations. In that case, it'll have 12 Osprey, 6 Lightnings, 4 Sea Stallion heavy lift transport helicopters, Viper attack helicopters or utility helicopters, and 2 Seahawk multi-mission helicopters, mainly for SE rescue. So it can also operate as a mini aircraft carrier, if you like. In that case, for carrier operations only, it'll have 20 Lightnings and 2 Seahawks. So it's quite a capable ship. The displacement's about 45,700 tonnes. The complement of the crew is 102 officers, 1,100 enlisted sailors, and about 1,700 Marines. All of that fitted into 257 metres by 32.
That looks like it's damaged there.
Yeah, I think that is one of the Lightnings manoeuvring around has
hit it.
Hit it. Yeah. There was a welcome address when we got on board. The Governor of Queensland gave an address, the Consul General from the United States Embassy in Sydney, and the commanding officer of the USS America, Captain Shockey Snyder. You notice the sign there, beware of jet blasts and rotors. So that flight deck, with the amount of activity going on there, would be a very busy and dangerous place when it's full on. There's one of the F-35s. Half of its thrust comes from a fan behind the cockpit, and the other half from the exhaust actually swivels vertically down and blasts down. So the aircraft can normally be landed vertically, and in most cases would do a short takeoff to increase its load. It has an internal weapons bay, but it can also carry external weapons at the expense of being more detectable by radar. It has an in-flight refueling capability, currently claimed to be one of the most advanced fighter aircraft in the world, but second to the 5th generation F-22, the Raptor. The number of those aircraft on board depends on what sort of role the ship has at the time. The Osprey first flew in 1989. As of 2022, there's 481 of them being built at around 73 million per unit. Now, the development of this aircraft is nearly being killed off a number of times over the years and the decades. The program has survived 2 Senate votes and sustained attempts by the Defence Secretary, all of which were overruled by Congress. They were trying to defund the project. Now, Bell Boeing have been very clever in protecting the project. They have a production group of 500 US-based suppliers, which employ over 27,000 people across 44 states. And that means every time the project is in jeopardy, all the state governments lobby to have it stopped, and they're quite successful. The STOL rolling takeoff and landing capability is achieved by having the engine nacelles tilted forward up to 45 degrees. Now, in 90 seconds, the aircraft can look like that. So that has caused some of the large cost increases in development to make that happen, to get the wings to fold and the rotors to fit aboard ships. The really big issue here is that they call them prop rotors, they're propellers and rotors, so they're prop rotors. The disc diameter of each one is 11.6 meters. Each one really needs to be increased by another 1.5 meters. So it has a very high disc loading, and that means you've got a torrent of downwash, which results in brownout or whiteout conditions if the aircraft is landing in dust or snow. So that's one of the problems with the aircraft. They just can't get the prop rotors big enough. The other thing is it's got to deal with engine failures. If one engine fails, the live engine shares half its power with the dead engine. So the aircraft doesn't roll over. That means that during initial start, if one engine starts, both prop rotors start the turn. Now, if both engines fail, the emergency action depends on the flight mode the aircraft is operating in, because it's got 3 flight modes, and I'll explain that later. But helicopter mode is the one of them, and airplane mode is the other. In helicopter mode, if both engines fail, technically it can enter auto rotation. This is the words of a test pilot. Although the flight characteristics are extremely poor, a descent rate of about 5,000 feet per minute and an aggressive and rapid flare is required, with survival being owed more to luck than to skill. So that doesn't sound too good.
No.
And if it's in airplane mode, it's impossible to feather the prop rotors. So a glide descent with wind milling prop rotors is required. A glide ratio is about 4.5 to 1. Descent rate of about 3,500 feet a minute at 170 knots, and a landing speed of about 130 knots is required. One of the features of the prop rotors is they will broom straw. I haven't heard that word before, but they'll broom straw during ground contact and throw the resulting fibres away from the fuselage to minimise injury to the occupants. So that's good for the occupants, but any ground crew in the vicinity, it's not so good. That's the co-pilot seat. It's command seat to the right side like a helicopter. If you notice in the right seat there, just in the centre console, there's a big, like a palm control. Put your left hand on. That is closely related to a collective in a helicopter. It's gripped with the left hand. It's called a thrust control lever. The effects of control movements that the pilot makes depends on which flight mode has been pre-selected, and it's pre-selected by using that palm rest there, and you can select helicopter mode with the engine nacelle angles to the horizontal, helicopter mode 85 to 96 degrees. There's a conversion mode in between 1 and 84 degrees, and then there's an airplane mode with 0 degrees. So whatever control inputs the pilot makes, it's fly-by-wire, and it'll have a different effect depending on which mode the aircraft is being flown. So everything is triple redundant. 3 flight control computers, 3 inertial navigation systems, 3 hydraulic systems, 4 generators, all to deal with those different flight modes using the same controls. This is the captain's chair there in the corner. The bridge. Now, the bridge is just not a big steering wheel and a compass. It is absolutely packed with workstations, communication and navigation equipment. And it would be a very, very busy place when it's all happening. This is the primary flight control, or it's the really the ship's control tower. Responsibility for aircraft movements is allocated to an air department on board, and that has different divisions. For instance, V1 division, they look after moving the aircraft on the flight deck. V2, if they were on board, would deal with arresters and catapults. V3, movement on the hangar deck. V4, refueling system. I'll talk later about the different coloured jerseys worn by the deck crew. V5 is the ship's control tower. That's where I'm sitting there at the moment. It's called Primary Flight Control, or PRI-FLY for short. It's manned by the air officer, the air boss. I'm sitting in his seat. And the air officer's assistant, who is the mini boss, and he has his similarly marked. And they look after activity on the flight deck and within a 5 nautical mile radius. Elsewhere in the island is a handling officer, call him the handler or the mangler. He has to keep track of every aircraft location and its serviceability on both the flight deck and the hangar deck. So he'd be quite busy keeping all that under control. The aircraft are usually spotted in the same position wherever possible all the time to permit efficient servicing, loading of ordnance and maintenance. And the flight deck personnel, also known as skittles, wear different coloured jerseys to denote their allocated tasks. So fuel, for instance, is purple jerseys, and they call them grapes, and there's a whole lot of other colours. Yellow is aircraft handlers, white is safety, and so on. So this is the shot of the flight deck with the lift on the side there. It was quite impressive when they brought us on board. We entered the lower deck, had to walk up a ramp to the hangar deck, and then we got on to the lift at the hangar deck, and then they brought us up to the flight deck. And you can imagine all these people standing on there, and the thing comes up the flight deck, and it's a pretty impressive entry to the ship. It also shows there the F-35s. Some of the that's towards the end of the reception. People had thinned out very much. They're mostly the crew there. And there is a water police boat out in the water there, just providing some riverside security. So all up, it was a very interesting and informative tour. The crew were quite willing to answer any questions you asked, and I got quite a lot out of it. That's it. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you. Any questions?
What was the date that you saw it?
That was the 22nd of June, 2023.
Now, that one's not set up with a catapult at all.
No, no. It's mainly for vertical or short field takeoff mainly. The America, the current one, is that the 4th ship to carry the American name. The one before it was a Kitty Hawk class attack carrier. It's another 40,000 tons bigger than that one, It had the angled decks and all the catapults and resting gear. It was pretty full on.
It's Graham Aspinall, Trevor. Just a query, security. How did you get all those photos of inside cockpits of Ospreys and stuff? Was security sort of lax on that day for the visitors?
Yeah, it was, and that's what I said when I started. I wanted to. They said it was an open ship, and on the bridge, some of the screens were still on. You could see they weren't all turned off, but obviously they weren't concerned about it. People, I double checked it because I thought I don't want to end up in the clink at the end. And they said, no, it's okay, you can go for it. I probably took about 50 or 60 photos, and everyone else was doing the same. The crew were very obliging. If you ask questions, when I was sitting in the Osprey cockpit, I had a Marine major standing behind me. What do you want to know?
Could you bring up the second slide, please? I was wrong with the missile launchers. When I saw the second slide, I know what they are. So stern of the boat, on the left, further left, the up that one's a RAM. That's the European short-range air defence missile. The box one's in the centre, near the centre line. They're Evolved Sea Sparrow. And on the little white thing on the R2D2, that's Sea Whiz, although the cities call them Phalanx. So that's a gun, a 6-barrel Gatling gun. The Sea Sparrows will go out, I don't know, I can't remember the distance now, and the Rams are close-in missiles. Up the front of the boat will be the same 3 things replicated on the bow of the boat.
Yep.
So the ship has 6 independent, in a sense, air defence systems on it, plus the aircraft, obviously.
Right.
Yep.
Very good.
The Sea Sparrows go out to about 25 miles. The Ram goes out to about 5 miles. And the Phalanx will go out to about 2,000 metres.
If it ever hits anything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. That's the page you wanted me to go to, I think, Ian.
Thank you, Peter. Yep. The ATSB has started work on a National Aviation Occurrence Database, as it's called there. And this preliminary screen, if you go into, you see the login section up the top there where you go to ATSB.gov.au data. It's a very easy one to open and all that, but it is a beta program. It's not complete by a long shot. All the data's not in there, but it's still, for anybody interested in about what we can, what's causing accidents, where they happen, things like this. So far, it's coming up very, very good. And each time I have a look at it each week, and the amount of extra work they've done each week is amazing. So you see it's got it all there. It tells you can't download the whole thing yet, but the intention, I believe, is that once it's complete, you'll be able to download it and use it yourself. It talks about all the usual things you expect, all their own protection to make sure they don't get sued for something. And the thing that I will say about it, it's completely anonymous in terms of people, but not necessarily in terms of aircraft identities. And even though it says the user agreement, by clicking start, you agree with it, there's nothing more you have to do. You can just not read it if you want to. But by pushing start, you go onto another screen, which is really straight into the good stuff. So the first thing you'll notice down the bottom is the scope of coverage is from 2010 to 2023. They'll certainly keep adding further. There's a touch in the 2024, but they'll add further. But at this stage, they don't have any intention of going backwards before 2010. Now, remember, the whole idea of databases like this is to try and predict and prevent. Yeah, look at the things that are causing the problem, say, now, what do we do? Look for the big hitters and say, what do we do about that? So what you'll see first up is over that period, the total occurrences in the bits up the top there, occurrence class and injury level, the total number is 74,500. And they break it down very generally into commercial, general, unknown, a lot of unknown there, and military. Now, the military doesn't really have the the data backing at this stage that the other ones do. But going up to the top there, Peter, if you would, you see occurrence class and injury level right up the top.
Right. Yeah,
so you've got things that are called incidents, serious incidents, accidents, and then related to that injury levels, nil, minor, serious, and fatal. And you can drill down in any of these things, and it's getting very good at how you can drill down now from the first time I looked at it. Further over the right, this is a visual map. Now, what it's saying here is that 74,000 occurrences is too many to put on a map. So you've got to drill down before you populate that map. But probably the easiest way to do it is just pick a single year rather than the whole lot, and then go down a bit further. So if we say up the top here, if you push on accident up the top, please, Peter.
There.
Yep. And then go over to fatal in injury level.
Go over to fatal, yep.
Yep. Right, now you see things have changed already, and you see suddenly we've come down to 308 occurrences, general, commercial, unknown, and no military. And also you'll see now we have population on here. Now you can have a look further out than that map just by using the scroll button. If you go downwards on your scroll button on that, or up or down, you'll see. But what it is now, remember, these are only Australian related aircraft. So you'll see there's been 3 of these occurrences that are genuinely offshore. But they are still Australian aircraft working, and go further over, then you'll see there is actually one in Europe as well. But anyway, not to worry, that's something you can play with. More importantly is, what do you get out of this? What's in the database that matters? So to go back right over to the left-hand side again, occurrences 308, Peter. Now what you can do is you can see touching it, it says that. If you right-click on that.
Yeah, I'm right-clicking, but nothing's happened.
Show us a table, right?
Click on that.
Yeah, click on that. Now, what that does is it'll bring up a table down the bottom here that just gives a breakdown in what they see as the major points, which are really the things that are already listed up here. If you go back on occurrences now and left-click on it, all right, now click on that, righto. So you've broken down another tray here. Let me go back to that one. And Peter, if you go from the occurrences now, go to general aviation, now left click on that. And see now go down that and right click, hold that on, hold it over the blue bit.
Where do you want me to go?
Yeah, on any of those, it doesn't matter which one. Hold it on there. Now what you want to do is right click it so that you get the drill through. See, now go down to drill through and click it, and you get a data table. This is where the real information comes from. So now it goes to a full table and tells you out of that 86 things, what each one was. Now you can then get down a bit and dig into that a bit you can actually, like any table, you can say, okay, date and time, depending on what you want to do. I'm trying to click it. You've got to click it for me, Peter. Date and time.
Click the top,
Yeah, click that.
Yeah.
Now see down there, you got a little button. Yeah, right. So now what it'll do is start to dig down into, remember the first year on there was 2010. So now you've gone backwards now, we've got the last. So we're going backwards now from 2024 right back to 2010 down that column. So if you're looking for a pictured time and date, it's a very difficult search because as you notice here, there's no search function at this stage. That's going to come later. So all your details on any particular event, you'll see sometimes they identify the exact aircraft. So the Bell 206 there in the third line down, that one there, you see it identifies a Bell 206 ZMF. 9 minutes later, impacted terrain. You'll notice impacting terrain comes up all the time in these. It's much more, or impacting power lines, things like that. Bad weather comes up a lot, all the things you'd expect. But that's a data table that you can start to dig into. And as you play with it, and as they develop it more, you'll be able to dig more into each thing. remember, this is only a beta version. It's very early stage, but the amount of data that's on here so far is amazing. And you'll see some of these accidents have a lot of detail. The very recent ones, of course, haven't because they haven't been released yet. So if you're looking for that mid-air at Caboolture, there's almost nothing there yet. If you go back earlier on, there's a lot of information.
Oh,
So you go down there. If you go down to that one down, Peter, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the one down that talks about the Sire Marchettis that mid-aired in Melbourne, you'll see there's not a lot there because the coroner hasn't done a full report to go into for publication yet. But it tells you the two of them collided. It doesn't tell you a lot about it, except that 2 people died. And you'll see some of these have, as I said, have a lot of detail. Some of them don't.
I see they use the American type of date.
Yes.
Yeah.
So don't like at all.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. But as you see, there's a massive amount of information. If you go up to the top left, Peter, there's a back arrow.
Yep. Click
Yep.
on
Click on that, and you should go back to the one here again.
that. I'd click one more time.
Yeah. So depending on where you go, so if you went across to occurrences, say to bird strikes, it's surprising out of those 70. Now remember, it's over that whole period, but now if it works, you should be able to push on just any one year. So 2019 was a bad one. There it comes up. No, it didn't. Okay, why not? Oh, because I'm clicking on it and you're not. Can you click on 2019 for me down there, Peter?
Yeah, I just did that. Yep.
Right, so it's not only coming up with now. Okay, so here's what happened in 2019. So you see all over the place, there's a lot of Australian aircraft across the Pacific and all that have had incidents. Now, if you want to try and click on any one of those blue dots, some of them will come up, some won't, depending on whether they've got the information in there yet. Okay, exceeded the limit. Yeah, that one didn't. Right, so now we've got down to a different year. What year are we on into now? This is another one of the hiccups with it. It should be 2015 because it's not highlighted down here. Right? So again, if you go over to and have a look at it, 23 occurrences of whatever we're looking at here, which again, there's no, what's missing out of these things is a table to say, what are you actually doing at the time? This is why it's only a very preliminary thing at this stage. If you go down to on any of those and go through, drill through again, data table, you'll start to get some information. What they're asking is for people like me who like to play with shit like this, is to give them feedback and say, what do we need to do? And some of the things will be, put a search engine on it for a start, and put on, when you open a screen, put up there, what the hell am I actually doing right at the moment? Instead of trying to remember and write it down. So, okay, what you got here?
All military.
All military this time, yeah.
And they're all different.
There's Taroom military.
Oh, there's two dates the same there.
Yep.
I don't say what sort of aircraft.
No, military you don't get much information out of the military. But where is Taroom? And what's the military got to do with it?
Taroom's a country town about 5 hours northwest of Brisbane by car. It's got a, I think it's a sealed airstrip. The Army Aviation use them all the time to go and play on. And 35 Squadron use them with their C-27Js, and occasionally 37 Squadron with their C-130Js.
Yeah, that's it. So it's actually one of these ones that they have there that they use a lot for training procedures and all that. And you'll see Taroom gets a bit famous there for bird strikes. I don't know why Taroom has so many airstrikes. But once again, as you've gone over there, Peter, you see the start of stuff you're getting here. No major industries. So it's a damage only, but it tells you as you went over there where the aircraft was when it had it. But some of them tell you where it started. So these are flights out of Amley, obviously doing a procedural run or something. Missed approach, go around, bird strike, as it says there. And so all I'm trying to point out now is this is very early days, but for genuine researchers and people who are trying to improve things, this is going to be a very valuable item later on. but it's still got a long, long way to go. But if you like playing with things like this, it's a great one to play around with at the moment. If you have trouble navigating it, send me an email and I'll pretend I know something about it. That's about all I wanted to show, Peter, really.
Righto. Any questions for Ian?
Don't ask any. I don't know the answer. I don't know what it's cost so far, but it would be a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, you certainly need to know your way around it.
It takes a while, mate. It takes a while.
No questions? And the last talker tonight is Bob, Uncle Bob. He's going to give us some anecdotes on 22 Squadron, RAAF.
Oh, there we go. It's getting a bit late, chaps. I don't think we'll continue on. It's not really worth it. This is just was going to be just a little bit of humour. What I'll show you is what I was going to take it from. I don't know how many of you are aware of the existence of this item. Richard Hutchinson down there, Dick Hutchinson, who was ex-Air Force, ground staff of some description, spent about, well, most of his life, I think, chasing down this story. And unfortunately, he died. Well, he got dementia first, and he wasn't able to complete it. However, the 22 Squadron Association have put together this item, and it's a full at least A4. Let me see, is it A4? Yeah, it's A4, and it's, oh gosh, a lot of pages, I assure you. 460 pages.
It's a lot.
I used to correspond with Dick back in the early days when he was putting this together, but I hadn't heard anything from him for a long time. And this is probably 40 years of work hiding away in here. The association has published it. Dick was primarily interested in the A20 side of things, and he didn't cover the Beaufighter period. However, another author did, and they've spliced the two together to make a book. Unfortunately, it suffers greatly from the need for somebody who can spell, somebody who can write English. Whoever put this together decided that the past tense of the word take was take. If you can make any sense out of that, it threw me completely every time I came across it, till I realised that there was never going to be the word took in here ever. So it's a very compromised volume, but it's for somebody like me who was always interested in 22 Squadron, and I'm sure some of the other people out there, including the RAAF themselves. Well, John, do you know the item at all?
No. So there is a bit of a disconnect between a lot of the squadron associations and the RAAF association and full-time Air Force. And quite a lot of the times we find out about these things like you've just presented now, and they've never bothered to come to us and say, "Can you help?" Because History and Heritage have got their own editors, their own contracts to. And the first thing we see is when somebody like you shows it to us.
This is a big. Well, this is why I showed it to you, because I don't know. Maybe somebody can get a copy or talk to the association about maybe doing a better copy within RAAF Heritage on it, or anyway, it exists. You need to know about it, and so it's very, very flawed, but it's the only one around. So it's called A Source of Pride.
Okay.
A History of 22 City of Sydney Squadron, 36 to 46. Author is credited as Richard Hutchinson. You need to talk to the 22 Squadron Association about it.
Yeah, even if we just get a copy for our reference library, because we've got a whole bunch of books where we've got to look at the real audience for it. And the Squadron histories don't have a huge audience.
You know that I provided that the bibliography to the RAAF for to breakdown, etc. So this is, you know, what I do is I hunt down all this sort of stuff and find out about it at least, or add it to my library, which is sitting behind.
They're doing that sort of thing now. The RAAF historian, who is part of History and Heritage, he's got a budget to go and buy books, and even if it's just a copy for our reference library, because it's really hard, because there are so many stories out there. You know, we basically stopped producing books on Bomber Command because there had been, I think, something like 20 or 30 times the number of books on Bomber Command as on Vietnam or Korea or Malaya and things like that. So, we've got to pay for the submarine somehow, so we don't have a lot of money.
I figured you guys might not know about it, because it's just that I knew an interest in the Squadron, and I knew the author.
Yeah, and if you cover the A20s, that'll be really good, because from memory, there isn't that much around on the RAAF A20s, and that'll be good.
That's my specialty, studying 22 Squadron Boston Ops for 20-odd years.
Did you know about the existence of the book?
Yeah, I knew about it, and I saw a rough draft of it ages ago, and I did a lot of correcting a lot of the technical things in it, with the fit of the aircraft, armaments, bomb loads, things like that. I've been going to order a couple of copies, but I haven't got them yet. But Dick, I knew Dick when I was based at Richmond, and he was in 22 Squadron when I was at 486, and he was the man that actually got me into Bostons back in early 80s, and just went from there. So I've been doing the history of the aircraft, and I've now identified all bar 5 Bostons that were in RAAF service, Squadron codes and histories of them.
All right, gents. Anybody for anything else? I think we might wrap it up.
Bob, a quick question. Does the book have a contents page, and does it have an index?
Let me see here. It does have an index, yes, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So about 10. There's 10 pages, so it's a selective index, is best I can say for something that size.
Yep.
And a contents page, yes, it does. Yes. Prologue forward, chapters 1 to 9, an epilogue, and a group of appendices. 9
appendices, isn't it?
9 appendices with, in fact, appendix 3 is 3A, 3B, 3C, 3D. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's actually 14, and a bibliography.
Right. Thank you very much.
All right. Yes, I thought there'd be some interest in that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you very much for coming.